This is the Hot Take Hockey Podcast with your hosts, Lucas and John Viveiros.
Hey everyone, it's John here from Hot Take Hockey with Lucas for episode 21 of the Hot Take Hockey Podcast. Well into the new year, we've already done our first since 2023 has begun. Lucas, man, second on the year, episode 21, we're rolling. How are you feeling? We got a big guest. I want you to tee it up because you were able to pull this one. But yeah, Lucas, how you doing? And who's our guest for today?
Things are doing well, man. I mean, we're rocking and rolling here in the new year. Bringing on a spicy guest today, a real spicy guest. I don't know if I want to drop it yet, Johnny. Might have to tease it a little bit out. But as far as the last week or so goes, obviously the Leafs played the Bruins, and that was quite the game. I mean, people are waiting for that best of seven, John, like for that to roll around if it is to happen. But
the Leafs are finally to pass the first round, as we talked about with Omar.
If they are, and I do want to call out, because we called it out off air, that John and I got the little match in OVO Leafs going right now.
Not planned. We swear not
planned whatsoever. So yeah, that's cool. But the Leafs Bruins game, man, what a game. I mean, as a neutral, like just action packed back and forth. Like that's the type of game that, in the dead of the season, like in January, like that game really felt like a playoff game. And
100%.
Other than, if you're on the Leafs side of the things, other than that last shot with 1:16 left, you like the effort in TD Garden, especially with it being the most vicious building for road teams going in there. And the Kraken were the first team to obviously get the win earlier in the week at TD Garden. So the Leafs overall played a good game, good 60 minutes. I think there was obviously ebbs and flows to the game where they controlled it a little bit more, and sometimes the Bruins were really taking it to them. But let's start there, John. What was your reaction to that Leafs Bruins game?
Well, you just mentioned it, and we'll have to talk about it after this topic of the Kraken. I mean, what a story this year and knocking off the Bruins there. But yeah, man, I mean, if I could take a few things out of that game, and I know we'll get into different discussions, but I mean, Riley Timmins scrapped that pair, short experiment, over experiment. Yeah, I mean, Foligno, I love the background of the Foligno story. Mike Foligno, former Leaf, coach of the Wolves, all that good stuff. But oh my, Nick Foligno, what a rat in that game.
I know, man.
What a rat.
The fact that he didn't do very much for the Leafs doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth for him. I mean, I have no time for Nick Foligno right now. I'll be honest.
No, man, it pisses me off with all that happened. Obviously, that was Dubas's move, but then everything that happened, and now he's a Boston Bruin is just crazy to me. Outside of that, I mean, yeah, I think looking at that game and looking at the atmosphere, looking at the importance of the Bruins environment and fans, and just still TD Garden, like that in the playoffs in itself will be huge for the Bruins going forward. And obviously evidence of what we've seen this season. So yeah, I mean, I think it was a good game. I think it was a good Saturday night classic. I think there was a lot of good aspects. I think a little bit of a different lens from Brad Marchand, because you usually see like Marchand either short and sweet or with the chirping back and forth, but the guy was giving the Leafs like way too much credit. I don't know if you watched the interview, but he's like, the Leafs are one of the best teams, some of the best players in the league. They're going to go far. It's only a matter of time now. And he's like saying all these things. And I'm like, okay, this is, to me at least, this is some heavy reverse psychology here, because there's no sense where you go, the Leafs are making it far, because the Leafs making it far means they're beating your team. So
exactly.
There's literally at this point, Lucas, is there ever going to be a road? Oh, okay. I shouldn't say that, but at least in the near future, is there ever going to be a road where the Leafs make it far and not pass the Boston Bruins?
No, absolutely not. For the Leafs to go, far this season, they have to knock off Boston, like you said. So I think Brad Marchand loves to talk to the media and do some of these reverse psychology things. And even if you remember a few years back, when Marner was in negotiations, he came out and was pumping Marner's tires to see if that could work to get his AAV up, which was crazy.
And then, we saw him in the playoff series, just cross-checking Marner like crazy. So it's like,
he loves this.
He loves the back and forth, 100%.
And I think he wanted to, like you said, to give him a little ego boost, or like just throw that out there right before the game, right? And see how that would mess with them mentally. I didn't think it really had an impact on the game overall, because it was a solid game. But I think that it's awesome seeing Marchand. He's a real personality of the game, and as a neutral observer, I think it's pretty cool to see him say things like that about another team.
Yeah, my perspective on Marchand's changed a lot. Maybe that has to do with the fact that the Leafs haven't played Boston in a playoff series like recently, very recently. But yeah, I mean, when I think about it, Marchand, one of the best players in the game. Obviously, he knows, even though it was before his prime, winning a cup and and doing well in the playoffs. So no, it was interesting overall, but I think it just goes back to the conversation of playoff format and circumstances for the Leafs. Unfortunately, to get to that point, they're going to have to play two of the best teams in the league. So that's unfortunate, but I do think it was a good test for the Leafs. It bothers me a little bit, the fact that they had that chance just more so to get closer to them. But like that win, I don't know if the Leafs are catching them.
I know that really didn't age well. My take that I think they were going to catch them. I think after that result on Saturday, like you said, I think it's over. It would just require such a run for the Leafs, and obviously Boston slowing down. But Boston right now, I was speaking about this topic with my brother too. Boston is on pace for the greatest season in NHL history ever, right? In points, wins, everything, right? I mean, the record, I believe, for wins in a regular season is 62. They're on pace for 64. They're on pace for well over 130 points. Now, can they keep that up? I mean, it's pretty unrealistic to think they're going to keep up that pace, but the fact that we're over halfway through and they're still going for it is unreal. And I mean, might as well transition to Bruins talk and Pavel Zacha getting his big deal 4 by 4.75. John, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, I think it's a good bet. I've always seen Zacha as like a second line guy. So, I mean, that's market value. I think the age makes sense too for the Bruins and just the direction they're going. I think the versatility of the fact that he can play center, play wing. So I think the Bruins mindset right now is obviously for the now, but also for what's to come after Bergeron, what's to come after Krejci. Like these guys are not going to be around forever here. We actually thought for a second Bergeron may have been done, which is crazy to say. Like Bergeron was close to being done, and now he's back, and the Bruins are having their best season ever, and potentially the NHL's best season ever. So I think the fact that these guys are here in the now, and there's a well-built team around them, but also like the perspective, obviously, to have these guys after they're gone. So Taylor Hall will be there, Pasternak will be there, Coyle will be there, Zacha will be there. And then we'll see how long Marchand has left. But yeah, I know we wanted to also talk about Pasternak's potential deal coming up. And I know that was a conversation on Saturday night as well. The potential contracts coming up for when we look at the next wave of contracts. So McDavid got the 12.5, and that's the conversation of all the guys after. So Matthews, what is he going to get on his next deal? And then obviously Pasta, McKinnon, like go down the list. So yeah, I like the Zacha deal, but obviously some big deals coming up for Boston and obviously around the league.
Yeah, and the Bruins have always been a team that's, tried to hold the dollars down for the betterness of the whole roster. And players up to this point, you got to give the Bruins players over their history credit. They've done that. And Charlie McAvoy was really the first one to maybe not take market value. Maybe he still took a bit of a discount, but to get that AAV a little higher. And I think Pasternak's going to do the same thing, right? All indications are that he's going to, get into double digits, and maybe he's not going to get exactly what he get on the market. Cause John, I think some team would probably pay him close to that McDavid AAV.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's going to work with the Bruins and probably get it a little further down than that number. But if they're able to lock up David Pastrnak, I think as they transition from the Bergeron Marchand era, they still do have a core of guys they're starting to put together that will keep them in the hunt and keep them interesting as they transition. I mean, even the goaltending this year has taken that huge step of they're certain with those two guys right now. Yeah. So Boston, I mean, as a Leafs supporter, it was always, once Chara, Marchand, Bergeron go away, Tuukka Rask go away, Bruins will fade into oblivion. It's not looking like that. It's really not looking like that. And Boston continues to put together a solid team. So quickly on Pavel Zacha, I just wanted to say too, it's great to see that he found a home for Boston. Obviously struggling once in the New Jersey organization, didn't really get his fair shot. And now with his two Czech line mates there, I think he's really found a home. So it's great to see that. And yeah, the Bruins continue to be one of the best teams in the league going forward.
Yeah, I'm glad they formed that line, because prior to the season, that's exactly what I was suggesting. I was like, man, it just makes too much sense. Yeah. Like I figured they were going to, and they still might resort back to the Pasta, Bergeron, Marchand line when they need to. And maybe in the playoffs, that's the scenario. But I just thought it makes too much sense. Give guys like Taylor Hall, give guys in that top six opportunity to play with a Bergeron. So DeBrusk was that opportunity. And obviously he's gone down with an injury now. But that was the big point of DeBrusk having a breakout season too, was getting that opportunity. So you can slide a guy like Pastrnak down, have some familiarity for him, and then look what the season's done. So yeah, I think back to that Pastrnak conversation, I also think it depends on the outlook from Pasternak's perspective and also just overall of the Bruins, because I go back to like the Lightning example. And when all those contracts were being done, whether it's Kucherov, Hedman, all those conversations, it was about, okay, shaving $1 million or $2 million off to make it work for Stanley Cup contending teams. And that's what the Lightning have done. So the Bruins, I wonder if Pasternak sees the perspective that even if Bergeron leaves, even with Krejci being done, if he still sees that potential of, okay, if I take $1 million or $2 million less, it's going to make sense for me and the team to win a cup. So I compare it to like Kucherov's contract. Kucherov easily could have got 11 or 12 million, easily. But he took the 9.5 to give that opportunity for the Lightning to have that flexibility. I wonder if Pasternak, I don't think he'll go as low as 9.5, but based on what you just said, like instead of getting that 11.5 or 12, he might sell for, I don't know, under 11, maybe like the same contract as Mitch Marner has right now.
Yeah. And that would be quite the savings for the Bruins. And like you said, I feel like once your big core guys do it at the top of the lineup, it really sets the precedent for the rest of the team. So that's only winning for Boston right now, and we'll see how it transpires the rest of the season.
Overall, I think we're gonna have a good guest on today with some good takes. I think
let's drop it. Let's drop it now. I'll quit the teasing. I mean, we were talking about some spicy players like Brad Marchand, and we got a spicy guest today. Like I said early on in the show, it's SID SEIXEIRO from Breakfast Television. You're going to know him from obviously Sportsnet, as well as the Tim and Sid show that he was on for many, many years on Rogers Sportsnet. So we're so excited to bring on Sid, fellow Portuguese man, and chat some Leafs, chat some NHL news in general. Vancouver Canucks, John, as well, as Sid's shown an interest in that on his Twitter. And maybe even dropping some nuggets on the Portuguese national team and get his take on the GOAT debate and where that's gone.
Because I know he's had different opinions over the years on that. But I mean, love him or not, I think Sid is always explosive with those takes. And I think for myself, when we're talking about the Hot Take Hockey podcast here, like I hope Sid brings us some hot takes, because I want to stir up a little bit. But yeah, man, overall, there's a lot of storylines, especially with Canadian teams lately. So I hope that brings good conversation with Sid.
Absolutely. Hey, John, what about, let's move on, quick transition to Matt Boldy and that 7x7 that he just got, as of this recording, it was earlier today. I was trying to find some sort of a comparable. Like I know when the Devils locked up Jack Hughes, it was a little early and some people were, a little harsh on pulling the trigger there for the Devils. And maybe his AAV was a little too high at the time he signed it. Now it's looking like a steal. Yeah. But for Matt Boldy, like, what do you think about 7x7? Do you think it's a good risk for Minnesota?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a good risk. The only thing I'll say is the Wild are in such a weird situation, because you'd think like a team that has the two dead contracts, we'll call it, in Parise and Suter, you'd think they'd probably be closer to the basement, but they're actually in a third division spot as we record and competing well for a playoff spot. So in terms of like that combined with, they're younger players and taking a bet, I feel like we've seen it more and more recently with teams taking that early bet and hoping it just pans out, with the fact that now we're looking into the future where hopefully no pandemic bullshit anymore. And now the cap will just keep rising, and kind of, we'll get into the Jim Rutherford conversation with the Canucks in a second, but he referred, even though I don't agree with what he was talking about, but he referred to the fact that like contracts that he'll sign or contracts that teams will sign, it won't look nearly as bad in 2-3 years. So Matthew Boldy at $7 million, I'm sure right now people look at it as a risk, but Boldy, he's entering his prime and he's already shown well this season and been a big part of the Wild success. So, I mean, 3 years, Matt Boldy at 7, I would imagine if he's putting up 60, 70 points, that will be a huge dub for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and he really burst onto the scene when he joined Minnesota. Obviously, he was 12th overall pick in round 1, and I mean, I think this is kind of the low end of him, right? They're projecting he's going to be a 60, 70 point guy, like you said. So I think this is one of those building blocks Minnesota obviously had to lock up and probably jump a little bit early now, so that way it saves them later on. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that one.
So let's jump. We might as well just rip through it. I already made a video, Canucks Talk. It's a daily or a weekly segment on the pod. Just quickly, guys, if you didn't watch the video, go check it out on the Hot Take Hockey channel. But we'll get Lucas's thoughts quickly here. Honestly, I don't even know what to say anymore. I think Jim Rutherford, some Canucks fans I'm seeing on Twitter are saying that we got no answers, but we did. We honestly did. Like, obviously no answers, I would say, in terms of accountability, like Patrick Levine, GM, not there. key members of the organization still have not spoken this season. But the fact that Jim Rutherford came forward, and I don't know if it's an age like, I don't know if he was just revealing things because he just wasn't thinking on a PR perspective, or if they coached him well enough going into this presser, but he was revealing stuff more than I expected. Like when he was asked directly about if Bruce Boudreau's time was done and out, and if Rick Tocchet was coming in, he didn't even say like straight out no. Like he said, Boudreau's our coach, but yes, I've talked to people, I've talked to other candidates, and it's just like, okay, so you're saying yes. He said no without saying no. And then obviously talked about the Horvat trade. And he also said like the Canucks are going to be over the cap, which is also wrong. But I guess if you contribute to the fact that they need to re-sign Kuzmenko, they need to re-sign other guys after the Pettersson and Hughes extensions. But Lucas, man, from what you know, from what you heard, the mess continues. What do you think?
Yeah, it sounds like Jim Rutherford. I mean, regardless what he was going to say, there was going to be things that were blown up from the press conference, and you know, him referring to the organization and the roster requiring major surgery is quite the. Oh,
that's a quote and a half.
Yeah, that's quite the quote right there. I mean, we've talked about it for weeks, John. I feel like as soon as they signed JT Miller, it really put them in a pickle to get Bo Horvat done, and so that. Bo Horvat, as the days go by, looks more and more likely to be traded. And I think that's probably the best thing the Canucks can do right now in terms of getting assets back. Bo Horvat is having the best season of his career, and there's no chance when he looks at what is happening in this organization, money aside, I can't see why he would be really attracted to it, other than the fact that this is the team that's really invested all their resources in him since he was drafted. Like that is the only appeal for him, right? Like other than that, he's got to be thinking, get me out of here and get me to a team that has a chance to win in the near future. So just from what I've heard and sound bites from the presser, obviously it only happened a few hours ago. I think that the Canucks continue to dominate the headlines of the National Hockey League.
100%.
And we'll be talking about them for the weeks ahead up till the deadline, because I think this team is going to make some major moves prior to that. And then obviously in the off season, I think by the time October comes around or training camp comes around, this team's going to look so different. There's going to be big.
They better.
They have to. And he even referred to that, right? So I'm going to take him by his word and say that and give him that. But Jim Rutherford overall has had one of those careers in general where he's always looked at as like this wise, ahead of the times type of GM who's always built good teams. And this seems like the first time he's really felt this pressure, at least that I can remember, where like the team is really, really in a rough spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. I will sound like the biggest broken record ever and just continue to say it. And I was saying it in the moment, so it's not like I can just speak out of my behind here and act like I was saying it when there's evidence on YouTube. I just, it's so frustrating because in the moment I was like, trade JT Miller. I'm not going to keep talking about that because it's just so frustrating. If I was a Canucks fan, I'd lose my mind over it because it just seemed like so obvious, and now more so. It looks so bad. But to list off some names, Lucas: Bo Horvat, Andrei Kuzmenko, Connor Garland, Luke Shen, Tyler Myers. Like that's 5 right there. Did I say Brock Besser? I don't know.
No,
like,
not yet. Brock Besser.
Like those 6 guys, I truly think only one of them maybe will be there in October.
Yeah. So
maybe 2.
So you think the only guys that are really like sure locks to be here in October are really Pettersson and Hughes? Or do you see maybe Demko fitting that mold?
I don't even know, man. Like Friedman put me through a loop when he said on national TV that Hughes wasn't even untouchable. I was like, whoa. And then who was it? It was Rick Tocchet on TNT that he was also saying that was it TNT? Tocchet was like, yeah, I don't know if I like smaller defensemen being he was saying something along those lines. And then obviously there's all the rumors about Tocchet going to Vancouver. It's like, bro, you got a small defenseman as the number 1. I don't know. Anyone listen to the pod? I don't know Rick Tocchet's exact quote, so we'll have to pull it up after. But I don't know. Like that whole conversation is crazy. I think Pettersson is truly the only untouchable. After that, Hughes. I think they'll still hold on to Demko just because he fits that age mold. Yeah. And like the value's so much lower than it was last year.
Yeah, it's at such a low. They can't
do that. I just don't think so. Those 3 guys, I think, are truly the only 3 guys I'm confident will be there in October. I also think the way Rutherford was talking, Miller will probably stay there. After that, I have no idea.
John, the thing about Kuzmenko, like I know Rutherford alluded to wanting to re-sign him, right?
Yeah.
Why would Kuzmenko even think about staying unless they really blow the doors off and give him all this money? Why would he even stay? I mean, he's had a great year.
Almost a point per game. He's been great.
Yeah, but he can look like, I'm sure there'll be plenty of teams lining up for his services that can give him what the Canucks can give him or more. And he might have a better shot somewhere else. Like, it's just this team, like you said, I mean, other than Pettersson, like I'm not writing anybody off from getting traded. I mean, Demko, like we just talked about, would be a tough one to trade out with his current value. But other than that, I think everyone's on the table.
The Canucks would be a disaster in asset management wise if they did what they did with JT Miller here and re-signing him.
Yeah.
And then flipped it and wasted asset management and just went, okay, we'll trade Demko right now. And we'll trade these guys right now when their value's so low. Like, it's just like JT Miller's value is at the absolute highest it was ever going to be. And I don't know how it wasn't so obvious to any mediocre hockey mind. And somehow it was like, okay, let's lock him up for max years, major money.
Yeah.
See ya.
Yeah, man.
Crazy.
And I think what's got to be said too, and I want to bounce this off Sid too when he comes on, when Sid joins the show, but Bruce Boudreau, man, has been put through the ringer. Like, the fact that you can be so disrespected, in my opinion, like in your current role, that every day you're having to answer questions if you're going to, you know, what the future looks like for you. And you hear all these rumors about them speaking to Rick Tocchet. Like, yeah, I really feel for Bruce. I think he's
atrocious.
He's a good guy and he's a good coach, and he's done what he can with this team. And it just continues to be more challenging for him day by day. Like, I really do feel for him. And I hope he gets another shot elsewhere once.
I wish Bruce would be willing to come to the Leafs as an assistant. I wish, man. He just wants that head coaching job, but I wish he'd be willing to come as an assistant. Lucas, just to peel out of this segment, and then we'll wrap and then go into our chat. But I got three, based on Twitter, I've got three hot take proposals. I don't think they're realistic, but I want you to say which team you think would say no. So we're talking about crazy contracts. We're talking about the Canucks. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, he's got 5 years left at the retained amount, 7.25. I saw this, I think Satyar put this out there on Twitter. Bobrovsky, after this year, 3 years left. He's playing well right now. Who would say no? OEL for Bobrovsky, 1-for-1. Bobrovsky's 10 per year. Which team would say no?
I would say Vancouver. I got to say Vancouver on that one, because I think, you know, Spencer Martin has been serviceable this year. And they're hoping Demko's obviously way better than what he's shown this year. So I would say Vancouver would say no, because them getting another atrocity of a goaltending contract would just show shades of Roberto Luongo at the end of his career. So I'm going to go with the Canucks say no.
Man, when I saw it, I was kind of on your mindset there, but then on the flip side, I was like, the Canucks seeing OEL, they just healthy scratched them for 5 more years. Well, yeah, like 4 after this. It's like, I don't know how they can possibly handle that. I don't know if I love the Bobrovsky replacement. I feel like that's just one bad situation to another. It's just so tough. Like, they took on that OEL contract. I didn't think he would be this bad. I thought it would be okay, but what an atrocious situation. The other one that I had pulled up, and this one I think was just brought up today, and I want your thoughts on it, because I think it's actually crazy. Jeff put it on Twitter. He said, if the Canucks were to trade Horvat to the Hurricanes, based on what Rutherford said today, that under 24 range, Horvat to the Hurricanes, Kotkaniemi and a first, who says no?
Does Carolina re-sign him in that scenario, or is it strictly a rental, or do we not know?
We'll say conditional first. It becomes a second if they don't re-sign Horvat.
Okay. I'm going to say...
This is tough, eh?
Yeah, that is a tough one.
Deep draft.
That is a tough one. I'm going to say that Horvat should command a little bit more than that. So I would say Vancouver would say no if that was today. But I think as the deadline closes in, that might be what they get. Like a decent young player and a high second to first round, or a second round pick.
Yeah, I think if it's no condition, I think if they're guaranteed to get the 2023 first. Yeah, it's like Kotkaniemi, and I don't like the Kotkaniemi, but the fact that like he fits exactly what Rutherford was talking about today is also just funny. But yeah, I think they got to get at least like a roster player, a first, and a young player for Horvat, in my opinion. Yeah. So if they can pull a younger player from Carolina or a prospect, then I would say yes to that deal. But I'm with you. I think Vancouver says no. Last one I wanted to throw out there, and this is Leafs Canucks here. I think we've talked about it before. Besser over $6 million. I think a couple of years after this one. Would you deal Topi Niemela and throw the contracts of Kerfoot, Engvall, and Hall for Brock Besser? Would you do that deal?
Okay, so this is for Besser or Horvat?
This is for Besser.
This is for Besser. Okay, so we got Kerfoot, Niemela, and Hall. That was the deal?
Well, yeah, Engvall. Like, it doesn't really matter. You need two of the contracts at least to match the cap, right? So, like, at least two of those contracts attached to Niemela for Besser. Are you doing that deal?
This is the toughest one, John. You placed these perfectly. It got harder as we went. I'm going to say that you do the deal. If you're the Leafs, you do the deal. Yeah. I'm so high on Niemela. I really am. But I think for this time period right now, the Leafs have to go all in. They got to do everything they can to win. And I think Brock Besser would be similar in terms of what he would add to the second line or for wherever he plays. I would assume it'd be the second line as Taylor Hall going to the Bruins when they acquired him. So I'm going to say the Leafs say yes and the Leafs should say yes. So, but Vancouver gets a great deal there too, I think, if they get Niemela.
Hey, that's the Leafs' way of adding a scorer and not trading their first round pick and Nyes. Right? It's a little bit of a risk because of the contract and the cap hit. I would say I'm even more intrigued if the Leafs threw in like a mid-draft or like a second round pick and got like maybe a 1.5 shaved off that cap for the Canucks to retain. Then I'm even more at that deal. But we'll see. We can talk about a bunch of different things. But Lucas, do you want to tee up our little chat, or is there any other topics we missed?
The only other one I did want to quickly shoot by you was in Detroit, and obviously Nedeljkovic clearing waivers today. And then obviously they snuck Vrana through there, and we don't know necessarily the whole situation on what's going on with Jacob Vrana. Obviously he's a really highly touted,
and he's been a healthy scratch the last couple of AHL games as well. I don't know if you saw that. Even crazier.
I did see that. So obviously there's some things behind.
There's something we don't know.
Now we don't know, and we don't want to speculate on that because we genuinely don't know. But Stevie Y sliding Vrana and Nedeljkovic through waivers. I mean, if you were to tell me those guys would be on waivers at the start of the season, I would have called you crazy. And I would have told you that people, like some team would have claimed each of those guys, right? So what has happened with, let's start with Nedeljkovic. I mean, that's the one we're really sure about. It's really about his play that's fallen off. And Husso's obviously supplanted him as the number one. What do you think about Alex Nedeljkovic and his sort of struggles at this point?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a classic. Like next year, he'll sign for like $1 million or less to be a backup, and that's just going to be the situation. Like he'll bounce back. I think it happens with so many goalies where it's like they're on that 3, 4, or 5 million, they're underperforming, and then the next year. So I think Nedeljkovic, like as an NHL goalie, he'll be a backup next year or whatever happens. But yeah, I was a little surprised. I guess it makes sense in terms of the tight cap and everything going on. But Nedeljkovic, I just feel like I've watched him a couple games this year where he looks actually pretty good, and then he goes through a stretch where it's like you got to get Husso back in there. So I don't know. Even the Leafs Red Wings game I went to, Husso got yanked, and then Nedeljkovic went in and he played well the rest of the game. So I think he's got the skill set. I think a lot of people ripped into that trade. I think I did less so, but I think looking at the fact that the Hurricanes knew something we didn't, I guess. So
clearly, Carolina really showed that they know what they're doing, because I think I can even speak for myself. When I saw Carolina deal him, I was scratching my head a little bit that I thought he may be a goalie of the future for them, but they just got goalies coming out the pipes over there. So
Koshnikov, they just sent down to the AHL. Like they're chilling right now. They've got Freddie and Ranta, and this is their plan all along. Like Ranta is going to be done after this year. He'll go sign elsewhere or be done, and they'll have Anderson and Koshnikov potentially, right? Maybe.
So Detroit specifically with Stevie Y, watch out for them, man, because I think as the years go by here, they're going to come out strong. Like they're going to slowly add each offseason, and before you know it, they're going to be real good again. So watch out for them. I think that's pretty much it. I know there's a few other, smaller topics going around, like certain waiver players, certain trades that we'll look into in the coming weeks before the trade deadline. But let's bounce into our conversation with SID SEIXEIRO and hear what he has to say about all things NHL and get some spicy takes, like you said, on the Hot Take Hockey Pod. So let's bring on Sid. And welcome back to the Hot Take Hockey Pod. We're pleased to bring on SID SEIXEIRO from Breakfast Television, and you'll also know him from the Tim and Sid show back on Sportsnet. Sid, how's it going?
Things are going well, man. Things are just so you know, very few people could grab me at this time of night doing a morning TV show. Like, this is my get ready for the next day, hour and a half. But you guys have really set the tone in your 1 year doing this. You're one of the best podcasts out there.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Anytime you get James Duthie on this podcast, it's legit. Okay.
There you go.
So
I appreciate that.
I'm glad to be here, honored to be here, and I miss doing pods. I used to do a lot of pods, but it's been a while. So anytime I get an invite, it's fun. Appreciate it.
Lovely. We're happy to have you, of course, and really appreciate the kind words. I mean, you're on the show now, so it's got to be legit too, right? SID SEIXEIRO is in the house. Let's move on. Let's move into the topic about
the Leafs. The worst downloaded pod you've ever had.
No, it'll be up there. We're locking
We'll
it in.
let you know.
Yeah.
Sid, this past weekend, we wanted to bring you on today because obviously this past weekend, the Leafs played Boston back at TD Garden, the House of Horrors. And obviously that the game actually went pretty well for the Buds, for the guys in the blue and white. But obviously the last minute there, right before the last minute, Matt Grzelcyk with the goal. I want to get your quick reaction on that game as a whole and what you think about the two teams now that we're into the second half of the season.
Well, I mean, everyone on Boston should be tested for performance enhancers constantly because I don't know what that's about. Jim Montgomery was a good coach for a while before that thing happened in Dallas. You put up some numbers, I guess, right? But I don't. That team must have really hated Bruce Cassidy like a lot, like deep in your loins hatred of a human being, because Jim Montgomery walks in and he looks like Bruce Boudreau on the back end of last year in Vancouver. Everyone loves him. And I just don't know. That's what culture means, right? That's what that's about. Because you just make a couple tweaks here and there, and Hampus Lindholm's been really good. Like they've made some additions that have worked out, but that's a team. The more I watch Boston, the more I realize that's a team that realizes this is probably it. Mm-hmm. This is their last run, because didn't half their guys resign for like Giordano money?
Yeah, absolutely. Bergeron, Krejci
made the comeback. Yep.
Yeah.
It was all one last ride money, all of it, and you could tell in how they're playing. Like it's sick. It's Michael Jordan Bull stuff going on.
Yep.
And although Seattle worked the other night, which was totally weird.
Yeah.
But I'll give the Leafs credit because that's the bar. Leafs competed.
Moral victories, they said.
It's not that interesting to me anymore, the moral victories. It isn't. I wonder. Yeah. The one thing I'm really wondering right now with the Leafs is, when do we start to honestly have the Morgan Rielly discussion? Because he might be the nicest guy in the room.
Oh, he's the best.
One of the most well-liked Leafs I've ever come across. Like I was covering one of the Raptor games in the NBA Finals in 2019, and I'm walking to get like a hot dog or something. This was right before Kevin Durant ruptured his Achilles. And I ran into somebody I knew, and he was there with a few Leafs, and it was Morgan. Like no one was messing with Morgan. Morgan was blending in with the crowd. Like no one even knew he was there. And I'm like, this is an everyday guy. This is a normal dude who happens to play in the National Hockey League. I've always been a fan of Morgan. And I just read the quotes from Sheldon Keefe today at practice. This is a Monday taping for those watching, so they play the Panthers tomorrow.
Yeah.
And he basically said Rielly is not yet 100%. Okay. Well, if he's not 100%, what the hell is he doing up there? Because I'm looking at his plus minuses since he came back, and it's like he's in the third round at Augusta, shooting well, -2, -3. Like this is not what you want. And he's playing a lot. And the one thing we all saw from the Leafs when they were really cooking was glass it out. Nothing complicated. Nothing strange. Justin Hall looked normal. Liljegren looks like the real deal. Glass it out. Hockey's not as complicated as some people would lead you to believe. I'll always remember I was in high school and a coach said to me, hockey is glassing out. Glassing out your own zone, you will win 3 times out of 4. If that's all you do. and just forecheck with any semblance of energy. That's what the Leafs were doing. I haven't seen the Leafs do that since 2004. Glassing out. Not complicated. That's it. And Riley's all over the place, man. His head's on a swivel. And they do not look the same. So do you sit down Morgan for another week or something? I don't know. There's a flu bug running through the Leafs dressing room. Just say he's got it. Sit him for 2. Like, who's going to know? Nobody's going to know.
Yeah, I agree. I think with the way they've played, even up until he came back, I mean, they were having the greatest team success of the season so far. And obviously that's not, directly because he was out of the lineup. But I think that it affords you that time to, if he is still banged up, give him some time. Like, there's no need to try to fit him in the lineup right now. John, what do you think?
Yeah, like, to give you background, Sid, I'm a huge Riley guy. So this has kind of been a rough period for me. I
like him.
I can't defend his play in terms of recent. And back to what you said, I know you've been in the industry for a while now, so you've gotten a lot of that background information on players and obviously that exposure. But everyone I've talked to, I've never heard one negative thing about Morgan Riley. So off the ice, like, that's never been a question. So it's tough to see like such a good guy like that go through his struggles right now. And he's the longest tenured Leaf. So you want to see, for a guy like that, the success, because he's been through it all. He's seen every shade of this team possible. So it's tough to see. I also think Riley jumped in, whether he's 100% or not. I also think he jumped into a team, the way they were playing, their style, it just doesn't fit him as well. But I was joking around with Lucas last episode. I was like, Hull and Riley must have some kind of feud, because Hull, mess of a season, Riley's gone, unreal play, and then Riley comes back and Hull's a little questionable again. So I don't know on that.
But you said something interesting there to me in that, they don't look the same with him there. Well, here's the problem. He plays like 20, 21 minutes a night.
Yeah.
So I went through have you guys seen the difference between his 5-on-5 points and his power play points this year?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
His power play points he has 8 points on the power play and he has 7 even strength.
Yeah.
If you're Morgan Riley and have 7 points even strength, that's fine. I want to see 20 on the power play.
And now that's happening. Yeah, and now that's becoming a bit of a challenge for him too, because maybe it does have to do with this injury or whatever nagging him. But Sheldon keeps running a 5-man forward power play. So
look, man, I know this about the Leafs. This is not the year they're doing anyone any favors. Keefe and Dubas, this is not the year where they're like, well, let's see how it goes.
The writing's on the wall.
Nope. So this Morgan thing, if this doesn't straighten out, there's gonna be some changes to either the ice time or he gets the flu. And he sits for a few. Because if he's not right, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being injured. Zero wrong with it. And he just signed the deal. So he's got his insurance. It's fine. This is not the year to be running guys out there injured when basically you're going to finish second in the division. And it doesn't matter who you run out there. This is the time. Don't be the LA Chargers and play people when you don't have to. You gotta calm down on that. You know exactly who you're going to play on April the 7th or whatever it's going to be. So just gear up. And if people aren't 100%, I love what they did with Matthews. Sit.
Yeah.
You want to play Boston Saturday. You're not feeling great. Sit. NBA players don't have to play games. I've never seen anything like it. Like, my advice my timeline once in a while will pop up. Somebody says, "Oh, I bought my kid tickets to watch Joel Embiid, Trae Young, Steph." These guys play it's the worst investment in sports to pay money to watch a specific NBA player. You might as well invest in Bitcoin. That's more of a sure bet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we got a first look at that with Kawhi with the Raptors, and he's still doing it.
Right, but what did it matter? When it mattered, where was Kawhi?
Yeah, there.
He was roasting dudes.
Yeah,
he was roasting dudes. That's all you care about. That's all you remember Kawhi. You don't remember when Kyle Lowry was kind of annoyed at it, and then he and Nurse and Masai had to have the real sit down, and the whole thing almost blew up, and no one remembers it.
You remember both of them holding the trophies or the trophies.
You remember the trophies.
Yeah.
You remember Kyle ordering Kawhi around at press conferences. I remember one ended, he said, "Come on, Kawhi," and Kawhi wouldn't say anything. It was like You know what I mean? Like, it was just this weird relationship that developed. That's what people remember. If he's not right, sit him. If Morgan Riley's not right, sit him. If Austin Matthews needs 2 days off because he really wants to play Saturday night against Boston, sit him. It's fine. But this NHL thing that exists in that you're not a team player if you don't fight through everything. The Leafs actually, more than anyone, need to sit guys. Because when they get to the first round and the second round, that's not like the best conditioned team in the league. I don't care how many guys they have in the back room. By the end of those 7-game series, they're done.
Mm-hmm.
And the team they're playing has 2 rounds still in. Why is that? I don't know. But the Leafs have like the most inflated staff. Sorry, I'm rambling. The Leafs have the most inflated staff in hockey, both in the room behind them and upstairs. And at the end of every playoff series, they're huffing and puffing. At the end of Game 6 in Tampa, they're huffing and puffing. Nope, not good enough. Sit guys when it doesn't matter. Now it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The next 2.5 months do not matter.
Especially after the loss on Saturday. You know, just like what you said, you know it's Tampa. In April, it's Tampa.
100%.
So and with the honestly, I got to give credit to the Leafs organization with the depth they have on D right now. They have 7-8 guys that can play, glass it out, like you said. So I do think they should look into that. And load management, the term load management, maybe that is something that makes its way into hockey, and we break down these stereotypes of hockey players got to play all 82. I mean, maybe that's something that comes with the next generation. But yeah,
some teams can.
Yeah.
You think it's a coincidence Kucherov misses that entire year? Comes back and looks like an Avenger? Like, that's not a coincidence. Some of these guys, hockey's tough. I know it's only 20 minutes high end tonight. I know, but like, that's a tough 20 minutes. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with sitting. Is Alex Kerfoot going to play 4 rounds of the Stanley Cup playoffs?
I hope not.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I see the dude lose his stick, leave his own zone the other night, and then get scored on. Like, I don't know. There's certain guys on this roster who don't look like they're up for it. I'm sure they want it.
Yeah.
But like, let's say I want to be a doctor. Do I have the chops to go through that for 10 years? It's not the same thing. It isn't. So I think the Leafs need to sit dudes right now, immediately. Anyone who has a nick of anything, sit them now, because it's irrelevant. Unless you're genuinely scared of what's going on behind you, and I mean, you shouldn't be, because you still have some depth, I guess, especially on the blue line. This is the most depth I've seen them have on the blue line.
Oh, for sure on the blue line, yeah.
It should be fine, but we'll see. The Leafs are so messed up, man, because even with nothing to play for, they have nothing to play for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's still pretty interesting to watch. It's still pretty good. I mean, the trade deadline's going to be interesting. That's going to be fun. And a Friday trade deadline. By the way, tell everyone at the NHL, thank you for the Friday trade deadline. That's a good move.
That is a good move. It's usually that Monday.
Give it a weekend feel, man. Take the day off early from work. Get home. Throw on a TV station. Sportsnet. Throw it on.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that move. I like a Friday trade deadline.
Well, as a kid, I liked the Monday because I would start faking sick Sunday night and make sure I was able to stay home with the parents. But
easier now on the Friday though.
Now that's
way easier.
The Friday, beautiful. Get off a little bit early. Yeah.
It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
So Sid, I was gonna ask you because you sent out a pretty electric tweet, I'll say, the other day about a different NHL team. But yeah, just on the Leafs conversation, just to wrap it up. I mean, the Leafs have had way more. Like, I go back, I think Lucas and I actually watched it a couple of years ago. It was back when you were in the original studio with Tim, and you were ripping. It was I was actually at the game. The Leafs lost to the Blues. It was when Phaneuf fell on the blue line and the puck went through Bernier's 5-hole. Anyways, you were just ripping Phaneuf. You were ripping the Leafs. It was an iconic clip, but we're in better days somewhat, but obviously the Leafs still a mess in different aspects. But a team that's truly in a mess that could probably compare back to those Leaf days is the Vancouver Canucks. And I'll read your tweet for the viewers because I loved it, Sid. I know you come out every once in a while. You have an electric sports tweet that comes out, and I love it every time. So Sid goes, I've heard my entire life how difficult a media market Vancouver is. Too much Canucks criticism, media/fans, unfair, blah, blah, blah. Enough of that. This is one of the worst organizations in hockey, and they deserve every ounce of criticism that comes their way in that market. Sid, on that tweet, what kind of boiled you over to send that tweet out and just overall, your thoughts on the Canucks?
You know what boiled me over? It's a good question. What boiled me over was the Quinn Hughes quote. Because I like Quinn Hughes a lot.
Yeah.
And Quinn Hughes is a young player who's still finding his way, and an exceptional talent. And when I saw that quote, I said to myself, this is something like a guy in his mom's basement in Vancouver would tweet at. Like that's not a quote from a dude in the room who knows what's going on. That's a tweet from guys like me. That's a troll thing to say. But my guy said it on the record in front of cameras because he's so pissed that Tanner Pearson's career just ended. And I saw that, and I'm like, and honestly, and the second thing that made me send it was I saw a clip of, it was a Rick Dollywall and Donnie and Dolly.
Yeah, Donnie.
They were on radio locally in Vancouver. They're doing their own pod now. They're having great success, and congratulations to them. But they had Brian Burke on the other day, and he was talking about the Vancouver market. And he was like, there's one part that's normal, and there's another part that's kind of over the top. And then I'm like, on top of it, you just sat Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who's been awful.
Yeah.
But he's still like, do you want to diminish all your assets before the trade deadline, or do you want to have one guy look good? Do you want to have one guy you can flip, or do you want to trash all of them? And then on top of it, I'm like, they don't want their head coach there. Jim Rutherford has been disrespecting Bruce Boudreau this entire season. So that's what drove me to very justifiably call Vancouver one of the worst teams in the NHL. I should have gone further and said North America. I should have went further and put them in Sacramento Kings territory. And then did you watch the Jim Rutherford press conference today?
Yeah, so that's the color I wanted to add too. Said you tweeted this out a couple days ago.
Before this was
before today's Jim Rutherford press conference.
Oh, what a mess! I listened to the whole thing while I was working. What a disaster! And back to what you just said about openly criticizing Bruce Boudreau. He's directly asked a question today about if he's done and if they've been talking to Rick Tocchet. And instead of saying no, and he did say Bruce Boudreau's our head coach today, which, okay, that's obvious.
What a vote of confidence.
Yeah, what a vote of confidence. Also said that he's talked to people and basically alluded to the fact that he's talked to other candidates. His whole presser just disaster today.
I didn't know where to begin there. Because the Boudreau, there was two things that really stuck out. Well, three. He said, I thought we were tanking, was one of the quotes of all time. Connor Bedard's a BC kid, right? You guys know that, right?
Yes. Yep.
So there was the I thought we were tanking line, which will live in infamy. Then there was, he acknowledged that he's been talking to other coaches for the last 2 months.
Yeah.
So since the middle of November, he has been humiliating his head coach. And now it's public. Now Elliot Friedman's got all the sources. Nobody's keeping their mouth shut. Everyone's spilling the beans because no one respects the Vancouver Canucks. That was the other, most of these things, if they were just if they were the only story in Vancouver, it's the lead for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
These things are all happening in real time.
Yeah.
The nuts thing is he comes out and says right off the front, he goes, I thought this team needed minor surgery, but it needs major surgery. 4 minutes later, Farhan Lalji gets him to say, well, I don't think we need a total rebuild, just a retool. What are you talking about? You just said you need major surgery. Do you remember what you said 4 minutes ago? You have any idea what you're talking about? Here's the problem with Jim Rutherford, who's won cups. Full respect to Jim Rutherford, he's won cups. The way he communicates and runs a team, though, he's been in small-time markets. He's been in markets that when you really look at what's going on around them are down the pecking order. And the Penguins, God love the Penguins. They're not ahead of the Steelers. They're not ahead of Pitt football. And when the Pirates are good, which it's been a while, they're not ahead of the Pirates.
Yep.
They're not. So Jim Rutherford in Carolina and Pittsburgh is used to talking to the media any way he wants. Boy, did he get a wake-up call today.
He got grilled bad today.
He got a wake-up call today, but he also didn't help himself. I heard some softballs in there. It was all above the belt from the Vancouver media today. Again, completely justifying what I tweeted the other day. It was all here. There was no need to, no cup hitting in an MMA fight. It was right here. And that guy still couldn't keep it together and delivered one legendary, oh my God, quote after another. That market is a disaster. That market is an unmitigated disaster. And if I'm Elias Pettersson, if I'm Quinn Hughes, if I'm Brock Besser, and they've been trying on Brock, hopefully it happens for him. If I'm any of those guys, with respect, get me the hell out of this right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right now. Because if you're Pettersson, they didn't want to pay you anyway. You've been through that negotiation. And then he talked about, I didn't even bring up the Bo Horvat stuff from today, where he said, well, we made a fair offer considering what he's done in the past, but he's having a career year, so we're in a pickle. No. He's not in a pickle. Bo Horvat is not in a pickle. He's going to be in Colorado in like a couple of weeks. Okay? It's Rutherford that's in the pickle because you gave all the money to JT Miller, who hates the game of hockey, who doesn't want to play it anymore. Watch him defensively.
And hates all the players that he's on the ice with.
Yeah.
I've lived in Toronto my whole life. I've followed the Ottawa Senators a bit. I've seen bad things happen in Edmonton. Canadian teams have had a rough stretch. I would take every other franchise in this country over anything that's going on in Vancouver right now with that ownership. I'll take the Habs. Habs are in the playoffs in 2 years. And the Canucks are soon to be retooling.
Yeah, it's such a shame. It's such a shame, man. It feels
like
a shame.
But why is it a shame?
Because
you got to keep your house in order. I understand what you're saying, and I hate to cut you off on your podcast.
Go. Yeah.
But there's no shame in being inept at your job. If you are inept at your job, you deserve what you get.
Mm-hmm.
If you're lazy in what you do, you deserve what you get. If you're disrespectful of people publicly, you get what you get.
Yeah.
I believe in karma. I think it's a thing.
Me too.
I truly believe in it. And Jim Rutherford walked in there with a chip on his shoulder that he needed help carrying it in to Rogers Arena. Yeah. And he has spread that garbage all over the entire organization. This is an Aquilini deal too.
Yeah. Oh.
This Jim Rutherford is highly thought of in hockey, but now you're seeing how he operates. Now you're seeing how he works. And that stuff might fly in Raleigh, North Carolina, and that stuff might fly in Pittsburgh. But you're now in a town where people pay attention. Like really pay attention. This is the big leagues in terms of attention. And I saw a guy today who's mid to small market in terms of handling the media and how it's done. I don't want to hear about honesty. That's a screw up after a screw up after a screw up today in that press conference. Screw up after screw up. And I didn't even hear, unless I missed maybe the last 5 minutes. Did he talk about Tanner Pearson at all? Because that was the whole point of the press conference.
Yeah, at the very start. And that's why I think this presser is just so crazy, because it began at the start with three individuals, two basically a doctor of the team and with the athletic training and background. So they had the three of them and then two left. And then I think that's where it really went sideways, because you have two people kind of helping out Rutherford in terms of PR there. And then they leave and Rutherford's on his own for what seemed like even longer. This presser was specifically, and I want to make that clear on the podcast, this presser was specifically to address Tanner Pearson and the mishandling of his treatment. So the fact that it just completely escalated and went to every other issue with this team, from, as I said, asset management. I think I've never seen a team go through worse asset management from top down, whether it's like the Rachel Dory, everything that happened there, and behind the scenes with other employees, and obviously JT Miller and how they've talked about certain players. But yeah, I mean, it was a disaster. I mean, in the presser, Jim Rutherford was basically saying, "Oh, but if a team could help us out," like he was like openly saying that if a team could help us out. I don't even know if they know what they're doing. Said, and it's unfortunate. And what Lucas was saying there, it's a shame. I would only say it's a shame for the fans.
That's what I was going to jump on. It's a shame for the market, like you said, Sid. They're a top 3-5 attention, market in the league, and for those fans that obviously bleed hockey, maybe not to the level that people think of Montreal, Toronto, but it's damn right there. And it seemed like they had an opportunity to change the page when they brought in Jim Rutherford, but it's just leaked. That stench has continued, through into this era of the Canucks. And I don't know how they're getting out of this. I honestly don't know, like, what is move number one? I mean, it's probably moving Brock Besser, who is supposed to be traded the last 3 years. I mean, it's a disaster. It really is.
Move number one's firing Bruce Boudreau. You've already done it.
Well, relieve him. Relieve him.
Literally, you've already done it. Like, I've never seen, this is one of the most disgraceful treatments of a head coach I've ever seen. And I'm not always a fan of head coaches. If you do what you want to Torts, I could care less. Do anything you want to Torts, I won't feel empathy. But even if Torts was going through this, I think it's pretty messed up. This is outrageous.
Well, Torts only lasted a year in Vancouver, so
maybe there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a reason for that, because he actually had an opinion and wanted stuff done a certain way and had standards and had won a cup. Maybe he wanted that. Nope, not going to find that in Vancouver. Not going to find that in Vancouver. Now, Vancouver's unique in that, with all due respect to like the BC Lions and the Whitecaps, it is heavy Canucks.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy Canucks in that market.
Yeah.
And that's tough. And I understand it. But get a grip. Get a grip. Your president can't be going out there and freestyling like that. That was as bizarre a press conference. That would, like, if I'm a season ticket holder, I'd give him up after watching. I'd give him up.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I? What am I doing? You do not care about my money. You do not care if that's the guy who's coming out. Like, he talked about his team today like I talk about my fantasy football team.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
It was loose. There was no emotion in it. And it was way too forthcoming. Way too forthcoming. If I want to trade Austin Eckler in my league, I could say that all I want. But he's running a National Hockey League franchise.
I don't know. I don't know who's throwing them.
This goes, man.
Yeah, I don't know who's throwing them a bone right now. Like the fact that John, what you said, our brother, he was asking for like if someone could do us a favor. There's no team. Every team that's watching that today is like
laughing
and thinking we could get Horvat for pennies on the dollar. Like we can get him for way less than we thought we could. Besser, you think we're offering a lot for him? No chance. Any of these guys.
And the best part is everyone knows Aquilini's not going to eat salary.
Yeah.
You know that guy's not going to do. Despite the fact he's paying like 9 head coaches right now simultaneously. He's like, oh, no, I'm not going to eat salary. No, okay. No deals facilitated here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we've wasted too much time on this ridiculous team. I'm sorry. They're entertaining. Like, honestly, like right now, like the start of every 32 Thoughts podcast are just Canucks.
It is.
It's been on this podcast.
That's what ours is too.
And your podcast. That's when you know you've reached a certain point.
Yeah.
When you're like, everyone knows what the first 7 minutes of the pod's going to be, and you're waiting for it.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. It's going to be entertaining.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sid, we have taken up a little, but honestly, I loved it, and just your personality and how you come forward on your takes. And now you've obviously transitioned into breakfast television, where you talk on a broad scale of topics. So whether it's politics, all that, how has your transition been kind of from that, I would say, big time personality of sports now in transition into like, you talk about everything and in the morning. And I will say my mom was hyped to know that you were on the pod today because she watches breakfast television every morning.
She's the one.
A lot of parents do.
She's our one viewer. Thank you. It's been really good, man. I got to tell you, it's been like, it's nice to come on and kind of do some more long form stuff with you guys and other people, because that's what I'm used to.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm having a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm meeting people I'd never meet. I get to talk about things I'd never get to talk about. and things I'm genuinely passionate about. Like I love sports. I'll always love sports, but I love a lot of things, and I'm passionate about a lot of things, and I am interested in a lot of things. And it's a hell of a team over there. It's been amazing. It's been really good. It's been really good. And the beauty is when the day comes where the Jays decide to win a playoff game and make a deep run, or the Leafs decide to make a deep run, which I still think they can this year. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Sure, why not? Or the Raptors get it together again. Like it's a type of show where we're going to immerse ourselves in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they let me do all kinds of stuff. It's not like they said you can't do sports anymore. Of course I can. But I get to talk about politics and world events and entertainment, Golden Globes, and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's fair. No 2 days are the same. I really like it. It's a fast 4-hour show, if that makes any sense. But like the pacing of the show is quick. And it's not just for, it's for the host as well. I hope it comes across for the viewers. It's a quick show. But it's very quick for us.
Yeah.
And I'm having a blast doing it. Honestly, I'm having a blast doing it. I miss Tim and the guys and all that. We grew up together. But not every day in sports is really that interesting, if I'm being honest. Like there's about 10 to 15 really good juicy days a year. And the rest of the time we're kind of messing around and filling time, which I had no problem doing. We were pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But I'm really enjoying breakfast television. I'm really enjoying it.
That's awesome to hear. And honestly, when I scroll through, whatever it is, Instagram Reels, TikToks, any of the social platforms, I like what your content team is doing there. And I see a lot of your like short form, like a few minute rants on there still.
And you're getting a lot of positive feedback on TikTok.
Yeah.
Like people are loving you, Sid. I'm always seeing it.
Good to hear, because I don't know a damn thing about TikTok. So but my dream has come true. Talia is our social media coordinator. She's amazing. She basically just tells me what to do, and we do it.
Nice.
And and the way she pulls stuff from the show, I know what you're saying. She's very clever. She's good. But it's stuff like that. Like it's a big team. I'm not used to a team that big. Like at Sportsnet, we loved what we did, but there was like a handful of us, right? Like we didn't have like 25 people around us. I got 25 people around me at breakfast television doing all kinds of amazing things. And it's I miss the guys. I do not regret this at all. I'm having a blast. I'm getting to show a lot of different sides of myself. And no 2 days are the same. And no 2 days are the same. It's been a lot of fun. And I still talk sports, which is cool.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Well,
Most ideal.
Sid, we really appreciate you jumping on. But before you go, I want you to give us a quick thought of what you think happened with Portugal at this year's World Cup. What really went down there? I know you probably can't do it super quick, but let's try to make it quick. Let's see.
Well, Ronaldo was a problem.
Okay.
I believe it was a problem on like the second he did that interview with Piers Morgan, it was a problem. He wasn't thinking about the World Cup at all. He wasn't focused. And what usually happens is I figure Portugal out.
Mm-hmm.
If Portugal plays a non-European team, they do not respect it. Switzerland, they respected. They won that, they do pretty well in the Euros. They don't, if it's not a European team, they don't juice up for it. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
But Morocco, like a team like Morocco, they won't get juiced for it. I don't know why. They need to approach every game like it's France, and they don't. And it shows. They didn't lose that game because of Morocco. With respect, they spent 45 minutes in the first half messing around with long balls that didn't hit, and then they got bit. So one day, and I don't think Roberto Martinez is the guy. I think he's a lousy coach. But one day they'll figure it out and they'll respect all opponents. The second they do, they can win like every other tournament. I think they're good at them. But they got to respect other teams. And certain teams they do, and certain teams they don't. I think that's Portugal in a nutshell.
Yeah, that does sound like them in a nutshell.
We have a lot of content creators and sport media individuals, like including myself, who came out of the sport media program. Do you have any, whether it's advice? Because for myself, and I was even saying to Lucas before we got you on, like the one thing I have respect for a lot of things you've done, but the highest thing I have respect for you is like your ability, just like, I wouldn't say you don't care what people think, but you're super genuine, super raw. Like you just come out with your take. You kind of deliver it to the best. So whether it's that or just overall getting into the industry, gaining connections, all that. Do you have any maybe advice or kind of how you handle things going through the industry and now where you're at today?
I mean, I would say, like, not everyone can be honest on air.
Yeah.
It's not for them. Just be like, find whatever the best version of you is. And if it happens to stand out a bit, even better. Somebody once said to me, I was doing highlights. Somebody once said to me, you need to stand out more. And only now at 45 do I kind of know what he was saying. Now, I don't think he meant, piss everyone off on Twitter. But I think whatever that unique part of you is, exploit it. Exploit it. There's a lot of people that can read a prompter, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're good at it. But can you do stuff they can't do? Like, to be, I think right now sports media is rewarding people being themselves more than ever before.
For sure.
And the beauty is you can start with something like this. You can do a pod. You can literally develop your own start. I didn't have that option. A lot of guys my age and a lot of women my age didn't have that option. But it's a different time, completely different time. Whether you're an analytics geek making your bones online and everyone knows who you are, or whether you're, two young guys like you starting up a pod over the last year, doesn't matter. You guys have, like, there are real opportunities for everyone because everyone's allowed at the table to show people what you can do. And when I was younger, that wasn't readily available. So find out what the best you is. And, if you want to do opinion-based stuff, the one thing I would say is know where the line is. But when you know exactly where the line is, and some people don't, but if you know where the line is, don't walk up to it, run to it. Just don't go over it.
Yeah.
But don't walk up to it. That's boring. If you know where the line is, hit it. And don't give a shit what anybody says about it.
I love it.
The most important thing I can tell you. Because everyone's going to have an opinion because of this damn thing. Everyone's going to have an opinion about your opinion.
Well, that's how it goes now.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love that.
The most amazing thing I see on Twitter is, like, people who have the opinion that I don't deserve to have an opinion. It's amazing when you think about it. But that's Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you not caring is quite the trick. I would encourage everyone to have it.
Yeah,
All right,
Sid. I was just gonna say, speaking of Twitter, I'm not just saying this because you're on, but you're truly one of my favorite follows because I know you were off Twitter for a while and you made your notorious return. And I think, all your sports takes, like, truly one of a kind because I don't see too many, like, obviously reporting and breaking news, but I bring those Canucks style takes more on Twitter because I love them, man. Keep them coming.
I appreciate it. The funny part is, now that I'm not doing sports consistently all the time, I'm having more fun on Twitter than I have in a while.
There you go.
Because I piss off people even more now because I'm out of sport. And they're like, "What's the weather tomorrow?" Like, honestly, there's like 9 guys. If you scroll through my
the same 9 guys.
There's 9 guys who are like, "What's the 401 looking like right now?" Like, it's kind of funny, but they're like more annoyed, which is great. Which is perfect.
I think that's some of the magic too. Is that since you're not in sports now, you select those moments to come out. Drop that fire take and piss off those 9 guys.
I'll tell you a quick story about the role Twitter's now playing in my life before we go.
Yeah.
Was it last year around this time that Leon Draisaitl and Jim Matheson had the back and forth?
Yeah.
Or it's around this time last year, right?
Yeah.
So I thought Matheson was being a complete idiot. And I defended Draisaitl with one sentence. I said he did nothing wrong yesterday. Somebody from Edmonton, who Oiler fans would know, got a hold of my number and called me and wanted to know what I meant by that. Now, I've never worked in Edmonton, but this guy's never worked in Toronto. And he was perplexed as to why I would take Draisaitl's side, because the line that came to me was, and I'm not going to say who this was, but the line that came to me was, he's moody a lot. And I said to him in very frank terms, I don't care if he water bottled you passing by in the hallway. If someone in the Toronto media market would have gone after Mitch Marner like that, or Austin Matthews like that, he's not getting back in the Scotiabank, because there is some level of decorum.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not during the Kessel days. It was kind of the Wild West, but like that doesn't happen. But my main point is a guy technically out of sports media right now is being followed by a lot of people still in sports media. Mm-hmm. Why? I'm not sure. I'm just a guy on a TV show. But I'm not an idiot, and I've worked in the business for a little bit, and I've seen a few things. And Twitter gives me the option to still get in the game a little bit, and I kind of like it. So I hate it and I like it. Is the main point of that story. But there are some people in the business who still kind of look for me for certain things. I'm not sure why, because I genuinely am a fan like everyone else. I get upset at things. I love things. I'm no different than anyone else. But what I don't like is stupidity. And I didn't like what happened to Draisaitl last winter, and I said what I said. And when I don't like something, I say what I said. Just like I praise people all the time. But I am fascinated by having left sports media and still having some kind of traction with people in sports media. I'll psychoanalyze that further another day with you, try to figure out what that means.
Yeah.
But Twitter's a good tool for me. I can't quit it.
And it definitely happens out west, like Western Canadian teams. I feel like more without those. Like the only one I could pick apart, Lucas, I don't know if you is like Steve, like Matthews addressing Steve's article to him openly.
Oh, yeah,
that's about it, right?
Yeah, that's a great example. But the one thing I also find about teams and like some people in Vancouver and Edmonton and Calgary is they will scream to the heavens about how no one there really cares about what anyone in Toronto thinks, and they listen to everything what people say. They listen to everything coming out of Toronto, which I always found unreal. Like, it was the most transparent thing I've ever seen. It's like, but you're listening to everything we're saying.
Yeah, it's also ironic.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get there are people who don't like Toronto. I don't know why. They never win. It's not like the Yankees. Yeah. They could outspend everyone. Like, I don't know what you're mad at Toronto for, but I find the sports broadcasting landscape very interesting in Canada right now. Very interesting. And I got lucky in that one day I figured out that I could actually say stuff and I wouldn't get in trouble for it. Maybe behind the scenes, maybe, there might have been things I've never even heard of that went in. But I found a safe space and I stayed there for a while. But I do love poking the sports media bear now and again. I'm not adverse to it.
Love it.
I'm not adverse to it.
Keep doing that. Never stop that, because you're definitely a really important figure in the sports Canada landscape. And we,
bless you.
Even though
important. I think I'm annoying. I don't know if I'm important.
I'd say they go hand in hand.
God bless you, but I appreciate. All right, we'll saw it off there. We'll saw it off there.
All right, Sid. Well, we really appreciate you coming on, and we'd love to have you again. We'll totally keep in touch, and we wish you a good morning tomorrow on BT. I can't promise I'll be watching at 6 a.m., but how about I check out on my commute on the way in? On my commute in, I'll watch.
Unbelievable.
I'll be on by 7:30.
I never do a podcast at this time of night, and you're going to watch BT tomorrow? That's a hot take.
I will watch starting at 7:30. That's what I can promise.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I know.
I'll take the PVR. If you PVR, I'm fine.
There we go.
All right, boys, take care.
All right, Sid.
Thanks again, Sid.
Have
we
a
really
great
appreciate it. What an absolute legend. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what? I gotta say, and this is not like putting down our other guests in any sense at all. But I truly think what Sid brings on TV is like what you're getting with what we just saw right there. And I honestly, whether it's the Portuguese in him or the outspoken personality, that's my style right there, Lucas. I love it. And for someone that's coming out of the sport media program and like trying to, and I see what Sid was saying there, because it's like, as you're trying to grow, you have to be careful what you say. You can't just, I think it's easier to say when you're more established in your career, more established in your position. And what he's saying right there, like he's on breakfast television. He doesn't really get bashed for much of what he says, right? Especially inside. So I think for me, that's my kind of style. And sometimes I do have to be careful because I still have to prove myself in so many aspects, but that's my shit right there.
John, I feel like you walk the line pretty well though, too. The one thing that Sid's got going that sometimes you gotta watch out for is those trolls, buddy. Those trolls. You gotta stay away from those trolls, because Sid is the master at, like he said, those nine people.
Yeah.
Yapping at him in the comments. No harm, no foul. Just laugh at him.
No, you're 100%. I've been so bad in the past. I've gotten better, but I've gotten a lot better in the past, where it's like I see a couple comments and my mind just, I don't know what it is, but I don't know if it's the Viveiros anger issues, but I just like I twist and I get so triggered. But honestly, I've been so much better. The passion comes in certain ways. I obviously got to read the room sometimes, but oh man, it's Sid was great.
Oh yeah, what an episode, buddy. Nice long one for all the listeners out there.
Episode 21. Yeah. And I gotta say, Lucas, man, well, I'll boost you up here, because I don't need the credit, man. You came in, we've duoed, we've co-hosted this pod, episode 21. Like, even Sid pumping up our tires, it's been sick so far, man. And whether it's like we bring on coming up more personalities, or even we've gotten into that category of former NHL players. The day we start getting the current NHL players, that even more so big time. But I'm freaking hyped. Episode 21, we talked about that 20 episode marker, and I feel we're heating up. I feel it.
Oh yeah, we're heating up, buddy. I mean, look, even Sid knew. Sid did his little research. He's like, yeah, Duffy on the show.
Oh, he did his background check. I love it.
So we'll see. Keep listening and keep watching us on YouTube, and we'll have some new guests obviously as we go on. And so excited to bring you guys content.
I love that it turned into a longer app. Good Sid chats there.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. Lucas, myself, John. Great chat with SID SEIXEIRO. And honestly, more great guests to come, more great pod episodes to come. Episode 21, a lot more to come. Thank you so much. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like, follow, rate everything the best you can. Spotify, Apple, do all that good stuff. We really appreciate the support, and reach out to us, as I said, on YouTube, social media. And Lucas, have a good one.
Peace.